Welcome, everyone, to this public meeting sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Comal area. I'm Roxana Dean, the president of the League. Thank you for joining us and learning about this important topic. This is an exciting time for the League and for all voters. Voters are going to the poll in record numbers. In Guadalupe and Comal County, as of yesterday, 27% of registered voters had already voted, either by mail-in ballots or in early voting. And since early voting began, 8,200 people have gone to the League of Women Voters website to look at the voter guide and the forms that we had taped for the of the different candidate forums. If any of you have not yet voted, I encourage you to go to our website at lwvcomal.org or to vote411.org to read what the candidates have to say for themselves. We don't change any of their words. We ask questions and they type in the answers to the questions. As a librarian, the topic for tonight is especially dear to my heart. As a reference librarian, our mantra is always cite your source. But as you will hear tonight, this is not as easy or as straightforward as when the source is on the internet. Our presenter, Janeth Fredrickson, is the Youth Empowerment Director for the League. She has been working hard to educate students and teachers about how you become an informed voter. Janeth has a 30-year career in adult education and retired as an executive vice president of a community college in North Carolina. So everyone should be muted. You'll be able to enter questions in chat and comments or hold them and ask at the end. There are several slides of useful resources in Janeth's presentation. All of those have been uploaded to the LWV Comal website under the heading News. So you don't have to take furious notes. And Janeth's PowerPoint presentation will be on the website too, and a link to this recording. So I will now turn this over to Janeth.
Thank you, Roxana. Welcome, everybody. I really am happy to talk to you tonight. Thank you for being a part of this. I have learned so much in my research on this topic. I hope you leave this meeting tonight having some new information too. As we all know, misinformation is as old as human beings. Only the means have changed. During the hunter-gatherer days, there were honest mistakes, lies, and rumors, and they simply were passed from one person to another. Dissemination was slow. Then came the printing press, and that allowed people who controlled it to send out all kinds of lies and misinformation and reach a far wider audience. Do you remember tales in school of the 7 cities of Cibola? Cities of gold, I learned, that led the Spanish explorers to travel around the Southwest looking for cities of gold. In the early 1900s, there was yellow journalism, which made some newspaper owners very, very rich. Hearst, anybody? But the digital age has really thrown open Pandora's box for ways to distort and manipulate information at a speed it's hard to imagine and reach in numbers that are hard to imagine. In my research for this project, a phrase I came across a number of times from different sources is down the rabbit's hole. Alice in Wonderland, anybody? And we have a whole new vocabulary today that didn't exist 20 years ago. Fake news, trolls, bots, cheap fakes, deep fakes, clickbait, click farms, sock puppet accounts. The last I read, the Russians aren't creating much new material. to feed to Americans. We're doing a great job of it ourselves across our country. The Russians are just simply choosing what they want and amplifying it to irritate, divide, and disinform people. So, what is the impact on those of us who want just the facts? Well, according to an ARP poll in 2017, 27% of adults are confident they can spot fake news. That's 1 out of 4. Maybe, maybe not. 43%, according to this poll in ARP, are getting less news due to mistrust. And I think that's really a bad one. People don't trust any news sources now. They're not sure what's real and what's fake. And I think that's a real problem. 50% of adults say they're changing their social media habits, which can be good as long as that means they're not sharing bad information. The whopper, though, is 80% of fake content that goes over the internet and is shared was shared by adults over the age of 50 in 2016. Wow. Why? Well, why is that? Why are Americans over 50 sharing so much information? We're smart, discerning people with many lifetime experiences, but the use of technology and the misuse of technology is something new. And with COVID, a lot of people have a lot of time to sit and look at the internet. For many of us, we grew up with few TV news stations. And for the most part, we believed what we heard. The different news personalities said kind of the same thing, and we trusted them. There was even a fairness doctrine passed back in 1949 that said if a media offered something that was controversial, they were required to give other viewpoints equal time. Can you imagine? That was revoked in 1987. Surveys show that way too many adults continue to believe what they see in print or hear on TV. We could do it for the most part years ago. We can't today. All of that makes us very easy prey for scammers and for those who want to manipulate and shape what we believe. Let's not let them. Education about the media, its use and misuse, is really critical. And this program tonight is just one step. Okay. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to take a look at these topics. The news media in print and online, social media, some advice about dealing with that, some wonderful resources and sources where you can get more information and even see samples of misuse, and a little bit more advice, and then it's your turn. I certainly will welcome questions. I also will welcome ideas and suggestions. Okay, let's jump in. The big question, where do you get your news? Alice in Wonderland, well, she's looking for it too. This is really the critical information. Where do you get your news? There have been a lot of surveys of people asking them where they get it. Sadly, a number of students say, well, I get it from my friends. I get it from my parents. I get my news online. They don't really have a source. But where you get your news is absolutely critical. I have to say, I'm a newspaper junkie. I'm old-fashioned that way. I like newspapers, and every day, most every day, I look at around 4. Of course, the Herald Zeitung, because I want to be informed about what's going on locally. I get the San Antonio Express News because I want to know what's going on in the area and the state of Texas. I get the New York Times because I want to know what's going on in the nation and around the world. And I get the Wall Street Journal. I want another newspaper that to compare with the New York Times and see what it says. So those are my sources for news. I think, personally, I think it's extremely important that your source of news be from the mainstream media, TV, print, online, but please, mainstream media who have journalists that follow standards of professionalism, and the media also have standards and a code of ethics. They have guidelines for verifying information. They have guidelines for running information. What amount of proof do they need to be able to run with something? They strive for accuracy by presenting both sides of an issue, or many sides. Sometimes there's not one or two, but there are many. Really important, they admit their errors. And certainly media do make mistakes. The important thing is, do they admit it? At their best, our mainstream media are our eyes and ears, holding public officials accountable and shining light into dark corners where we don't go. However, that said, I urge you, compare 2 or 3, not just one, compare 2 or 3, and you'll find some variation. And maybe what you think is a little bit of bias and a little bit of slant. Be a news sleuth. Be critical and be a little bit skeptical. Okay, this is really important. Compare 2 or 3 and see what you think. Here are a few things to look for. Okay, what are the topics they run? And as important, what are they leaving out? That I often look at a story in the New York Times and then I see what the Wall Street Journal says. That's important to me. What are the topics? How are they different? And what do they leave out? If you only look at one, you have no idea which stories they're deciding not to cover. Look at the order that they present stories and the location in the broadcast. In newspapers, the most important spot is upper right-hand corner, and the most important stories next to that go on the front page above the fold. In a newscast, see how much time they give to the stories. That will give you some sense of their priorities. So really compare that. I've seen a number of stories that might be front page, top right corner in the New York Times. In the Wall Street Journal, it might be on page 4 or 12. That tells me something. And that's where your own critical judgment can decide what that says. Look at the headlines. All media want your attention, so they try to grab you. You'll hear me mention emotional issues again and again and again. Headlines grab your attention, and so look at what they say. Are they sensational? Are they accurate? Sometimes you read ahead and then read the story in a paper and you think, where did this come from? The headline does not suggest that. That certainly happens. Check out visuals. You know, you've seen pictures making leaders look wonderful, wonderful, very, very much leaders, proud, confident. And you've seen other pictures that make them look pretty bad. What did the pictures tell you? Think about that, judge them. Words. What words are used? Imagine the demonstrations we've had recently. Do you call them a peaceful demonstration? Do you call them an angry mob? Words are going to tell you the flavor of whoever wrote that, and possibly the flavor of the media as much as anything else. And then finally, ask yourself, is this story filled with facts or is it anecdotes? Everything that goes on, we can come up with some really interesting anecdote. An anecdote that's emotional, that tugs at our heartstrings, that makes us angry, makes us sad, makes us want to reach out. And journalists use them a lot. They're wonderful ways to bring people into a story. But for a news story, you need more than that. Look for the facts. What are they? What are the sources of the facts? Okay. Also, there are online sites that rate the media. Here's one of them. This site is from Adfontes Media, and it's one of the popular media bias charts. Just go online and look for media bias charts. This one takes news media, and rates them. I think the column on the right is very interesting. First of all, neutral is in the middle. You see skews left, hyper-partisan left, most extreme left, and the same for the right. Skews right, hyper-partisan right, most extreme right, and then along the right side, you'll see a type key. The ones circled in green are the most reliable. The next ones are mixed reliability. The next ones are somewhat reliable. And the ones circled in the orange are unreliable. I think this is a pretty fair chart to help us understand the media. It's not the only one though, and I suggest, be skeptical. Check out some other media charts. Another media chart that's popular is allsides.com. It rates the media a little bit differently. And both of these have input from journalists on right and left and review their findings. But take a look at this, use it as a guide, and then compare it with others. Okay. The mainstream, as you'll see on that chart, the mainstream media clearly separate news from opinion. News is verifiable. What happened? Verifiable, it uses facts. No opinions. It works to tell you what happened, what is happening, what's going to happen. Just the facts, ma'am. Analysis, the writer looks at that information, maybe looks at some background information, maybe talks to some experts in the area, and then he draws conclusions based on facts. And then opinion is what a writer thinks about whatever happened. He doesn't need opinions. He doesn't need facts. He just has opinions. A good standard professional news media is going to be very clear labeling which one you're seeing, which one you're hearing, which one you're seeing. If you approach a news source and you can't tell where one stops and the other left off, the standards of professional journalism are being violated. Be careful of that. And finally, one more point in talking about news media is that good newspapers publish opinion pieces with different points of view. The idea is let the reader read different things and make his own conclusions. Also, a good newspaper publishes letters to the editor from different views. I think our local Herald Zeitung does a great job at that. I know I love some of the letters and I hate others. So that's probably okay, probably the way it should be. Okay, let's move away from news media. Let's go down the rabbit hole. Social media is where all the challenges lie, as far as I see it. First, a few tips about websites. Let's start big. You can find just about anything on the internet, just about anything. Did you know there's a site that will give you the deleted emails and texts that politicians have sent out? There's another website that will share everything that President Trump has ever tweeted or said. There are all kinds of websites on the media, on the internet. You just have to be careful. When you're looking at a new website that you haven't seen, the number one rule, first, pause and sleuth. Pause and ask some questions. Double check before you even enter it. Double check the address to avoid spoofing. The local League of Women Voters knows all about that. Our wonderful website, vote411.org, was spoofed. So please enter the words correctly when you go onto the website. I learned about spoofing when I was trying to go to a website about cruises and the ones that had sales going on. I entered what I thought was the right web address. I got a porn site. That taught me to go back and look at it very, very carefully. I listened to one webinar that said, be sure and pay attention to URL indents, .org, .com, .edu. And then I listened to another that said, forget it. Today, there are hundreds of indents. And a lot of companies, according to the article I read, said that a lot of companies get their name, or they get one address with a .com, they get another with a .org. So indents really don't tell you anything. I think EDU still stands for higher education, maybe, but be careful. Then once you open a website, please use that home page and check about the mission statement, the sponsors, the dates, when are the things posted, what was the date for them, who funds it, who's behind it. Websites should tell you if this is a conservative website or this is a progressive or liberal website. Look at all of that. Jump in before you start reading and believing. Okay. If you don't find anything about the mission, the values, I would skip the site. Okay, let's go on to social media that's shared. Social media. And I'm going to start with a few words. You may know these. I didn't know them all. But I think it's important to be able to speak the language, if nothing else, just to impress our kids and our grandkids with how very up to date we are. Bots are accounts that spread content without human involvement. Just a little bit like robocalls. They can tweet hundreds of times, day and night. The ones that I've seen look like a blog or a conversation. They often have a photo of somebody attractive and a name attached, but the content is repackaged and not original. You're going to get a slide in a minute that can show you some examples of what that looks like. Trolls are people who have social media accounts totally designed to spread misinformation and stir emotions. They may be part of a political campaign or just post for the fun of it. Emotion is one of the big things driving the internet and driving the sharing of bad information. Sock puppets. These are anonymous accounts simply set up to either criticize or praise anonymously. You think you're a great singer? You're running for office? Set up a sock puppet account and tell the world how wonderful you are, and nobody knows it's you. Or set up a sock puppet account and tell the world how awful your opponent is. The more outrageous you make it, the juicier. Deep fakes and cheap fakes copy material that's already out there somewhere on the internet. Somewhere, it's a big world. They distort it in some way and then disseminate it in hopes it'll go viral. Deep fakes involve some pretty sophisticated manipulation, change in videos to take out people who weren't in the picture, adding people who weren't there, doing some pretty serious, sophisticated things, and they can be very hard to identify. Cheap fakes are just that. They're cheap, they're easy, they take materials that's there, copy it, change the information about it, and send it out, hoping it'll go viral. You find a great picture from Serbia, well, copy it. Add a real exciting, emotional, can't believe it cut line, blame your opponent, and send it out. Clickbait is kind of like a worm for a fish. It's something that's so good, so juicy, the viewer bites by clicking on it and then sending it on to others. And you hope they send it on to others and they send it on to others. Unfortunately, too many older Americans fall for clickbait, letting emotion override reason. And 70% forward items just because there's an inflammatory headline and they never even read the article. 80% of bad information is sent by older people. 70% of that is forwarded without the people even reading the whole article, just based on its headline. Okay, this is important. Next slide. Spot the troll. I told you that trolls are people who have accounts just set up to spread misinformation. This is quite an amazing site. Just enter Spot the Troll on the internet, and it'll take you to an interactive page, an interactive quiz done by Media Forensics Hub at Clemson University. You'll have a chance to test your skills, to see what bots look like, and trolls, and real human created information. And then the site will also help you with clues of how to identify it. Spot the troll. I think it's an excellent site. Okay, now it's time for some advice. Unfortunately, there's no real quick fix to identifying misinformation, fake information, lies, distortion. It takes a little bit of work. There are so many variations and they keep changing all the time. So here's some advice. A number of organizations that I've read are giving everybody 3 key questions. And I know there are a lot of materials for high schools to teach students the same information. Anytime you see something on social media, ask yourself, who's behind it? Who wrote it? What organization, what website posted it? What's it all about? And then what's the evidence? Is it something sensational and emotional with facts or not facts? What's the date? How old is it? And finally, what do others say? And this is called lateral reading. Don't just accept what one hot item from social media tells you. Take that same topic and check it out on one or two other sites. Fact check it, compare it to others to make sure that you know what's right. If you pause and ask these 3 questions, you will catch a lot of the fake things. Okay. If you have photos you question, did you know you can do a reverse image search? Go to google.com, images, and then upload the photo or web address of the photo. And it'll tell you where the photo originated, when, and other information. I've seen a couple of these. One of them showed some very muscular, beefy guys with tattoos and black leather vests kneeling beside their motorcycles in prayer. Very compelling photo. Unfortunately, it wasn't for a rally here in the United States. It was a 2-year-old photo from South Africa. The reverse image search discovered that. I saw okay. If the information you're reading is hard to believe, or even if you want to check it out, these are some very, very important fact-checking sites. I lifted them from ARP and Harvard. They're their recommendations. I'm sure you're using one or two of them. If you're not, please do. And you'll get slightly different variations on information from the different ones. As you can see, one of them deals with science, one of them deals with international articles, another with coronavirus, and most of them just facts. By the way, yesterday I read that in looking at about 10 countries, the United States and 9 in Europe, 89% of incorrect information, misinformation about coronavirus comes from, guess which country? 89% from the United States. So this is a great site to use to check that out. Anyway, I can't recommend these highly enough. Okay. Also, during this deluge, there are a few great sources and resources. Real briefly, I want to describe these because I recommend them to you highly. News Literacy Project used to focus on schools, education for kids, and now is opening up more to the general public, realizing we need it. If you sign on to them, you can receive a free weekly newsletter that talks about some of the scams of the week. You can take some quizzes on news literacy. You get tips for identifying misinformation and some wonderful materials if you want to teach or talk to students. News Literacy Project is really at the top of my list. Poynter Institute, and I'm going to read here. Poynter Institute is an organization that seeks to advance the ethical standards for professional news organizations and offers a free program called Media Wise to help seniors sort fact from fiction. I've spent a little time on their website and it seems like an excellent organization to do that. So ethical standards for news organizations. Civic online reasoning from Stanford University has free lessons, focuses on students again, has free lessons, assessments, and videos to help teach students and adults to evaluate online information. Center for News Literacy, this is from Stony Brook University, has a free curriculum to help students recognize differences between fact and rumor, news and opinions, bias and fairness. So teaching some basic concepts there. You know, ARP, American Association of Retired People, they are giving more attention to misuse of information, and they now are working with the Poynter Institute to create a program called Fact Tracker, aimed at older people. And they have a number of articles now to educate their readers. So really good. NewsGuard. NewsGuard is a site that was started by journalists that provides credibility ratings for more than 6,000 news and information websites. A number of libraries here and in different countries use that. I know Roxana does and says it's an excellent site to help you get accurate information. And just as an example of how many sites there are, Election Integrity Partnership is a new site. And I looked at it. I think it will have more later, but let me read this. This is long, but I felt it fit with the League of Women Voters. It's a new coalition of researchers with the objective of deleting and mitigating the impact of attempts to prevent people from voting or delegitimizing the election results. I looked at one of their very lengthy articles. I would say it's a pretty scholarly article, and it really examines a lot of issues. Okay, these are all good, and there are more. And my final advice. I really recommend mainstream media for news. Don't count on just looking at the internet. Do not. Follow 2 or 3 sources. There's something we call confirmation bias. All of us tend to read sources that agree with us. We need to recognize that, and I think it's really important to choose some sites that don't, but respectable, professional sites that come up with facts and good reasons. Before you post anything online, just stop and think. I know I'm speaking to the choir here, but too many people, too many adults see something hot and send it on. And sometimes read what it says and sometimes don't. And the last one is help educate others. We are fairly new to technology and media. We have so much to learn, but think of all the people out there that get no instruction. Our public schools, our schools, all of them, are working hard to try to educate students to make them media literate. Probably not working hard enough. It's a critical issue. You know, it's how we get truth and accuracy and trust in our government. Okay, help educate others. If you receive a post that you know is wrong, my recommendation is respond to it in a very nice way. And as someone did a few years ago when my class from Sweetwater, Texas was sharing stuff, one of the classmates said, you know, That photo, I fact checked it. That photo has been around for 20 years and it was used 10 years ago. It's really not accurate. Wow, what a great statement. Okay, that's our trip down the rabbit hole. Now it's your turn. Questions, comments?
Real quickly, Janet. Kelly, can you hear me? Hello?
Mhm.
Hello,
Hey,
can you
Kelly.
hear me? Real quickly, I keep going in and out. So I'll say it real fast. I missed all of you that you generally use. You mentioned the New York Times.
Mhm.
Did you mention the Post?
No,
No, you
no,
forgot to mention the Post.
I didn't. The Washington Post,
And the
no.
LA And the LA Times.
But I think it's a great paper. The nice thing is the San Antonio Express News carries a lot of Post articles. So
Okay.
I appreciate that. The San Antonio paper carries articles from mainly AP, but also the Post and the New York Times. So I read it there. The Post is a great paper. You'll see on that chart of media bias, it's near the top.
Thank you.
Mhm. Questions, comments, suggestions?
I love
Janice,
the,
it's Ada.
Mhm.
If you want to take your reading a step further, I like the magazine called The Economist. It gives a nice global perspective,
Mhm.
and you can usually borrow it from the library.
Okay, I saw that on the media bias chart too, and it's near the top. Sounds very good. I didn't mention I actually get 4 magazines too, but not The Economist. I am a print junkie. Thank you.
So this is Roxana, and most libraries have subscriptions, online subscriptions. The Ty Preston Library has something called News Bank, and I think the other area libraries have something similar where you can see newspapers from all across the country. Unfortunately, not the New York Times and the Washington Post because they require special payment and they're not part of these groups. And don't have a way for libraries to always subscribe. But you can find papers from all across the country and compare. And there's other databases that you'll find at your local library that help you to see all sides of different issues.
Yep. I was a journalism minor in college way back a long time ago. One of the best exercises I did was we had to get 5 or 6 papers across the nation and find one issue and trace how the different papers covered that issue. Looking for the words, the headlines, the placement, all the things I mentioned. It was a wonderful exercise. And I urge you to do that with news programs, TV news. You learn a lot.
This is Roxana again. What Janice said is a lot of work. For every little piece we see that gets sent to us or we read, it's a lot of work. And I don't think we can expect ourselves to look up and verify everything. But I do think we can commit not to only share something that we have verified. That's what we can do. Is maybe we don't check right then for ourselves and we're just not sure. But if you're going to take action or you're going to share, then I believe we have a responsibility to do all that work that Janeth outlined.
Great suggestion, Roxana. And once you identify media, which I'm sure most of you already have, you can, for the most part, trust it. And if you look at 2 or 3 with slightly different approaches, you can feel pretty confident that that's accurate if it's professional news media with standards. and some don't have them. They'll run an article knowing it's incorrect and then take it off, but by then it's picked up and it goes viral. So it's a really scary thing to hear how a bad idea, incorrect information goes viral. And the more sensational, the faster it does. I got one quote that said, sensational, emotional things get shared 6 times faster than accurate ones.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments?
Yeah,
Well,
real quick,
I
it's
was just
Kelly,
going to say
Janet.
that they're really slick now in how they do things. I consider myself pretty knowledgeable and don't send things on willy-nilly, but right at the beginning of COVID, I was I was fooled because this slick thing came in from a person who is in the medical professions, and this person had forwarded me a thing from someone on the West Coast who is associated with a hospital there, and she knew him personally, and really, well, it turned out to be a scam. It was all an untruth, and I thought that these people have gone to great to get a logo and to get that person who is in research there at that hospital. They had to get his whole address book and send this to, that's how my friend got it. And I'll be darned if about a month later, I got a different one from another doctor. This one was on the East Coast, and it was and I'm thinking the Russians have to be doing this. This is a test run to see how they can disseminate things, because they had to steal those people's address books to do that. So that's all I have to say.
Hi, this is Peggy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to say that my daughters, one of whom has a degree in political science, my daughters have all 3 warned me. And about 4 years ago, I was on Facebook and I saw an article came in, and I quickly said, okay. And I said, okay. I sent it on, and my daughters like wham on me because it was fake. I immediately apologized to my fans. But another thing I did, I was so distraught about me sending on fake news. I got off Facebook. I deleted every Facebook thing that I could think of and did it. I just said, this is not a good place. And so that was why I got off. But I wanted to say that most of us are older and we have children who have a lot more experience in this world. And if you're of the same mindset, if you will, sometimes listen to our children. They know things. My grandchildren are 14 and 11, and they'll tell me about a bot and a troll. Grandma, that's a bot. That's a troll. And of course, I'm going, what's a bot? So listen to our children, listen to our grandchildren. They know what a lot of them do. Now, if yours aren't very of the same mindset, I guess you wouldn't listen to those. But I just wanted to add that. Also, my daughter told me to check on the stations because we're all in the San Antonio area, and to check and see which ones of our news stations are Sinclair News. So I don't know if you had talked about Sinclair News tonight. I looked up to find out which stations in San Antonio were bought basically by Sinclair News. You can do your own research. And that way I picked a station that I can listen to the national news, 6 o'clock or whatever, and know that I'm not getting a Sinclair News slant.
Okay. Used to, what I read is in the past, there was a lot more effort to make sure that news was accurate, the fairness doctrine. And at one time we had a ruling that a single person or an entity could not own a lot of media in the same area. We don't have that
I
anymore.
know.
And Sinclair is one of the great big ones, very conservative, and owns a lot of media. Obviously, Murdoch is another
Right.
and they own a lot of media.
Yeah. I listen to the PBS NewsHour and use that as one of my primary sources to compare other things to, for
Mhm.
that reason.
That's what I use.
I think that's great. One of the teachers in a local high school who is trying so hard to get his kids to be media literate says he tells them, look at 3 TV stations, look at Fox, look at CNN, and look at PBS.
Mm-hmm.
Compare those 3 and see what you find. I think that's a great idea.
Jana, thank you so much. This was a great job, full of good information that we have a responsibility to use, even though it's hard, but I think it's good that we know it. And I appreciate all of your efforts.
Mhm. Bye. Thanks, guys, for
Well,
tuning in.
no, if people, I'm just saying, I'm stopping the recording.